Good evening, Facebook and YouTube. We are live here on my page and on my YouTube channel as well. I'd like to greet everyone a good evening. I'm super excited tonight. Obviously, for those of you who saw my announcement, you have an understanding of why I'm very excited. I have um, uh, a very special guest tonight. Of course, all my guests are special. I mean, we all have our unique journeys that we go through and lessons that we share, that they share and they impart, which I find I'm just very grateful that there are human beings who share so generously. And also, I think tonight, what makes this extra special is I didn't plan this. All I knew was that as I was going through my day, and by the way, if you're watching, say hi. Let me see how I can do this. Hi, Tadi. There's a lot of people already here. Tadi, Jam. As I was going through my day, just towards the evening, I just had this tug to do a hi Gerald, thanks for watching. Please comment. We're gonna engage you guys. You're gonna go crazy tonight with my guest. I say I mean crazy in a good way. We haven't actually I haven't gone live. We started chatting, and I was already gonna we were gonna get into it, but I wanted to involve everyone. Hi Karen, thanks for watching. I wanted to involve everyone because I think these are very important topics that we will be talking about. We will be talking about life, spirituality, suffering, pain. I'm just already, I'm getting ahead, but I do believe we will touch on a lot of these things. And the amazing thing about my next guest, aside from, and I know, he's one of the most, and this is cliche because a lot of people say this, but he is truly one of the most humble human beings that I've ever met. And but there is a, I would say, a reason for why he acts the way he does. I think it's a deep spirituality that a lot of people are just perhaps, and he'll describe it. He has some other ways of describing who or what he is as a human being. But definitely, you guys are in. Hi Bulacan, hi Mami Ama, hi Iloilo. People from all over the world. Let us know where you're watching from, and we will greet you. I won't delay any longer because we're gonna get right into it. We want to engage you guys with questions. You might as well do this. Bakit? Since there's mostly Filipinos for now, but we will have internationals join us. Kasi Zeke, my next guest is Ezekiel Vicente. He's the Chief People Officer of Mind Valley. If you don't know who Mind Valley is, then hi Dar, thanks for being here. They are one of the largest. I would just say I know Zeke and I were speaking about what the nature of Mind Valley was, marketing and promoting other speakers and trainers. But yeah, they're like the largest personal growth company. I'll just Zeke can explain a little bit more in the world. They've had amazing speakers. The high word for watching that have gone through that they have worked together with. I believe T. Harbecker. I remember Vishen Lakiani. Of course, their CEO is Vishen Lakiani. They also who is also friends with the CEO of iFlix. I saw that broadcast. How he created, I think, a multi-million dollar to almost a, I think, if I'm not mistaken with that interview, a billion-dollar company, creating like parang the Asian version of Netflix and stuff. They've had of course, Lifebook is something that they're also promoting there. They've had a lot of amazing. I can't. I'm just so excited. They've had amazing speakers. Now, why is this relevant? A lot of you have been following me, and you've been asking about life, asking about growth. Robert and I had this discussion last week, and we had over 3,000 people watching and commenting, and it was very helpful. So it's my hope that all of you watching tonight will benefit from this conversation with Chief People Officer of Mind Valley, Ezekiel Vicente. Welcome, Zeke, to the chat room.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good evening to everybody. Um, you're you're gonna have to like be accommodating today. Been talking all day, so let's get it on.
Thank you, Zeke. I mean, I'm just so grateful. If you guys see me react as well, I'm just very excited. I mean, one of the things I think, Zeke, that I'm grateful for in meeting you. I mean, we were together last year. I had an opportunity because of Cassie. Hi West. Zeke was invited here, representing Mind Valley. Of course, he did a talk. I also had like an hour session I wish I could have stayed longer because I had another gig right after. But what really struck me about you, Zeke, was your, like I said, I mean, I was asking you certain things, and we were talking about certain authors that a lot of people, and I understand this, but a lot of people might not have heard of. I know, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people that I haven't heard of that you've researched as well. But it was not just about that. It was about, I guess, it felt really good having someone to connect with when I was sharing all these. I'm like, yeah, sure, bam, I know those guys. Oh yeah, you know about that. I'm like, wow, this is pretty amazing. And just to let people know, Zeke, Zeke and I had a conversation. I can't remember, maybe 3 months ago, or right, sorry, 3 weeks ago. I've lost track. And we went for about an hour and a bit, and it was one of the most amazing conversations I've had. So ang hope ko nga sa lahat dito, since everyone I'm just making sure everyone is okay, Tagalog pa tayo. That you guys will get a lot of value from Zeke. I'll support him. So he's been speaking the whole day. I'm grateful. Not that your schedules got canceled, Zeke. Sabi niya, amazingly na-cancel daw yung mga schedule niya. And just like you, Robert, he asked me, when do you want to do this interview, this talk? I said, how about tonight? And, and he said yes. And I'm like, wow. Hi, Cassie's here, Zeke. So
Oh, hi,
I'm just
Cassie.
yeah. Can you? I don't know. You can see that. Oh, sorry. I'll put some people up here. So there's Robert. Hi Cynthia. Hi Ate Cynthia. Cassie's here. A lot of people from Cebu are watching. So we have Cebu, Zeke, Iloilo. We usually have people from the States. I'm sure they'll be here as well. And from other places all over the world. So sige, I'm just so excited, man. So let me take a deep breath. Okay. So Zeke, perhaps I don't know. I mean, we were talking about just before we started. We were talking about sabi mo, Bab. You might have a spiritual perspective on certain things, but I wanted to talk about you mentioned perhaps mythological origins of certain beliefs that we have developed over millennia, or however you want to call it, right? As well as social-cultural. I don't know if that was the word that you use. And then the
Yeah,
spiritual aspects.
social cultural realities. I mean,
Okay.
any form of so let's look at a human being. Like if you're looking at any person who's going through something, maybe it'd be like a painful experience, or they're sad, they're angry, they're emotional about something. There's a reason for that, and any form of emotional stimulus is very deeply tied to what are your expectations and were they met or not. And for some people, those expectations are not actually very obvious, because you just feel like a fish doesn't know that it's swimming in water because it's been in water all its life.
Yeah.
And for many
Wow.
for
Okay.
many
So
of us, yeah,
you broke up a little bit. You
is it
broke up a
fine now?
little bit there, Zeke. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
water that we're talking about can
You were talking
easily
about
be.
fish.
Yeah. And if you're fish, you don't necessarily know that you're in water, because you've been born in water and you live in water. It's like we don't necessarily notice air because we just breathe it. And that can come in the form of, so for most people in the Philippines, we come from, like, a lot of people come from Christian backgrounds. So you carry with you the expectations of what it means to be a good Christian. And then you also carry with you your reality of what your family's culture is. And then you also carry with you, let's say, something as simple as whatever experiences that you grew up with. So all of these different things come together to form a whole set of expectations that you may or may not be consciously aware of. And when these expectations are not met, that's when disappointment or happiness or any form of emotion stems from. And that's why spirituality is one angle of it. That's one of the mythos, like the mythology or stories that you talk
Mythology.
about as a basis. But the other aspects cannot necessarily be ignored as well.
Okay, this is great. I mean, this is a great start. Simply because, especially since we're pretty much the whole world is on lockdown. A lot of people. I don't know on your end because for people's information, Zeke is based in. He's currently in KL in Malaysia. That's where if I'm not mistaken, now Zeke, you're there right now.
Yeah.
Where Mind Valley is based. Hi, Nick Lees from Wisconsin. Thanks for being here, brother. So, Nick, you share a lot of speakers and authors. This is the guy who, him and his company, who actually brings all these speakers, Nick. I'm glad you're here. So, in relation to suffering, right? A lot of people, I'll say in my experience, Zeke, because I do work as a coach, I try to help people as much as I can with the work that I do. And people have been a lot of the suffering, we'll call it the suffering that people are going through has to do with relationships. Okay, so but aside from the relationships, before going to the relationships, I always say also to be able to understand first, understanding yourself is so important. I'd like to ask your take on this. There's a person here. I usually make this as an example. There's a person here, and they perhaps haven't stepped into a certain level of self awareness, and they get into a relationship with another person who perhaps does not have a certain level of self awareness, and they get together, and there's a lot of perhaps that pain that comes out because perhaps they are expecting the other person to make them happy. Like, what are your thoughts about that setup, or if there's any other angle that you can see there?
Oh wow, that's a very very packed topic, to be honest. I think a lot of people don't understand, to be able to unpack this, and you're gonna have to bear with me in trying to explain this. If you go through psychology and understanding human development, you will notice that your relationship with somebody changes for us as soon as the label of you being together happens. And why does that happen? You have to look at that first. Why is it that when you're initially dating somebody, it feels good, there's a lot of dopamine there, and then you feel so excited, you can't wait to see the person again, and then every time you're meeting this person, it's like, I'm bringing my forward and best self forward because I want this person to continue spending time with me. And why does that change? You have to look at the reason why that changes first. And the answer to that is actually fairly simple, in the sense of, why is it that people are different when they're with their friends versus when they're with their family, or like when they're staying with parents? That is the reason for it is in there. It's in the same reasoning behind that. Oh wait, you were gonna say something.
No, I was going to say. So why do we behave differently when we're with our friends and when we're with our family? Okay.
Correct.
So wait, I'm trying to understand this, Zeke. My understanding of this, okay, it might be, and this might be my experience. So when I'm with my family, I sort of like adjust my behavior. I'm more behaved. Kasi, sorry, there's Nick is here. Well, because maybe there's a possibility of me being scolded by my parents. I have to behave, right? But when I'm with my friends, I get to, as they say, let my hair down. I relax a little bit more. I talk about stuff that I would never say in front of my parents, perhaps.
Yeah.
So is that what you're talking about? Like, of course, there's
correct,
figures of authority.
Correct. It's not necessarily always figures of authority, but primarily because, like, when you're at home, you have a certain set of behavioral training that you've created or has been created over the years of growing up in that household. These are the people who fully understand what you're like when you're at your worst. It's like they know, like, for example, my parents know that when I get pissed off, I'm the type of person who just shuts up, and then maybe I walk outside, or I tend to go somewhere far and walk on my own and wander around. That's how I deal with things. Now, I don't do that to my friends, because that's not something that I will, that level of emotional intensity can barely be invoked by my friends, but it could be invoked by my partner. And the reason, and that's why you see it, because like the relationship between you when you're with somebody that you're emotionally invested in automatically mirrors the kinds of relationships that you had with your family when you're growing up. So we look at unconscious models of how does my mom and my dad behave, and if that's the only like role model that you have of how relationships are, that unconsciously you will follow those patterns if, like, in your first relationship, or at least they will be influenced by that, whether it be almost exactly the same or the opposite of it. And which is why, like, it's sometimes shocking to see that, the saying that you treat your wife or your husband as if they're like your parents at some point,
Yeah.
like you
Yes.
say. That's where that comes from. And then that does happen, but people get over it over time, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, Zeke, I'm just laughing because I share that line in the seminars I do. I say, well, because of course, we, for those who have, I think a lot of people here have gone through, these personal growth programs, basic personal awareness, some the advanced programs, and we talk about conditioning, right? Where there is modeling. It's what you see when you were growing up, especially specifically 0 to 7 years old, theta brainwave, where you absorb your environment like a sponge, right? Programming, what you see, and then what you hear, auditory conditioning, and also what you experience. And I remember, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Harbecker who says that, but a lot of speakers say it, where exactly what you said, Zeke, where you end up either the opposite of your parents, where you say, I will never ever be like my dad or like my mom. I
Yep.
hate her or I hate him. Or even perhaps if even if you say it outwardly, maybe subconsciously, madami dito, the way you're behaving, you might get angry at someone. You might suddenly stop and you're like, oh, holy, hi kids, holy, beep. That was just like my dad. That
Yeah.
anger, that
Yeah.
behavior, that was just like my mom, who I said I would never be like, and it's manifesting, right? There's just so much of that I'll just go into a comment lang, Zika. So in a romantic relationship or other kinds of relationship, the relationship changes as soon as okay, this is what Zeke said, as soon as the label happens.
Yeah,
Is
and
that what you said?
it's not
But
necessarily always just romantic relationships, because it can also be, so if you expand the idea of, when growing up, most of us were grown up in extended families. So you're with like you have your cousins, you have your family friends, that aunt who's most like kind of like your mother and whatever. As long as you fall within that bubble of what you consider to be very home like, which is where you feel that you're emotionally invested in these people in a sense of like their family to you, that's when it all comes out. Because that's where you let down your guard at the end of the day and say like, okay, I'm going home here, and this is where all my stuff comes out. And you're not
mhm.
conscious, and that's not, you're not necessarily always conscious about that. So you could even goes to say that when you're choosing partners or really really close friends or whatever, you're basically asking, am I am choosing the kind of baggage another person has. That's basically what you're doing. And you're trying to see if your baggage is also like, can we make something work here? Because we're both working on it, and are we actually helpful to each other in this experience of living life?
Yeah, but I
That's one
must
way to look at it.
yeah, I must say, Zeke, I mean, hearing you say those words, I would just, right off the top of my head, I just thought, wow, that's someone who is, perhaps has some level of self awareness, would say or think. I'm working on my baggages, you're working, but there are a lot of people, of course, Zeke, who get into the relationships, and they may not even be, of course, I'm sure with all the people that you guys have helped over the years, where they're not even aware of patterns. Darlene put here, trauma bond, where there are patterns of behavior that they're not even aware of. Like then it creates a
Mm-hmm.
codependent relationship where my
Yep.
pain feeds off your pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but we're not aware that we can't break this cycle. And I'd like to hear your thoughts here, Zeke. There's so much here to talk about. Where they say I can't break away from this relationship, even though Zeke, it's causing me pain, and I know it's causing me pain. And people are telling me, "Hey, you've got to wake up. This is causing you so much pain." Because obviously I go to that person and I cry. I say I'm being physically, emotionally, whatever, verbally abused, but I keep going back because a lot of people perhaps have created an identity that the only time that they know who they are is when they are in a relationship where they are hurting and suffering. So how what's the way through that? And this is something that a lot of people have asked me. Bam, I know I want to get out. I know I'm hurting here, but why do I keep going back?
Well, that's another loaded question, obviously. But to be able to let's unpack that a little bit. So
Sure.
if you want to unpack that, we have to understand that. So let's look at people's two things. Let's look at the nature of behavioral change, and let's look at the ego to do that. Like these two things. So any change, whether it be good or bad, is stressful. Like your body treats it the same way. So even if you're gonna move to a better relationship or a better job or whatever, oftentimes that's still very stressful, because the body is like the human mind is not conditioned in a way that it likes change. It'll naturally go into a state of, oh, this is panic, things are changing, I'm used to my sense of safety, so let me hold on.
Oh, oh my God. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but see, that makes so much sense. That makes so.
Yeah,
I mean, siguro, and get back. I mean, this is relevant. Maybe that's why, with like when I have conversations with people, and perhaps it's a relationship. It doesn't matter 5 years, 10 years, but especially perhaps those longer relationships, and not necessarily, but there might be shorter relationships where they were highly emotionally invested in that other person, and
yep,
there's the change that happens, and they're like, I don't know what's going to happen to my world because this is the only thing that I've known for
yeah,
such a long time. And now
yep,
there's this stress that they don't want to face. So go ahead.
yep,
I just had a big
yeah.
aha moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if you look at that, so that's one part of the picture, which is that any form of change is uncomfortable. And the next part of the spectrum is the relationship between yourself and your ego. And if you look at the ego specifically, you're looking at what that means is a sense of identity, as you mentioned. So if you have been in a relationship with somebody for a very long time, the way you've identified yourself, so let's pretend that like you and I were in a relationship,
Sure.
pretend, then
Mm-hmm.
my identity, one of the identities that I might have put on myself is I am killed, the guy who's in a relationship with you. And I'm hanging on to that sense of identity, because if I don't have that, then what do I have?
But
And
but
that
but,
is
but
actually but that is actually the scary question for a lot of people, because if you remove everything that you have around you, remove your job, remove your partner, remove your friends, remove your family, and all that stuff, what is left? And if you're not happy with what's left, that is the second piece of the puzzle that people are afraid to let go of that in the first place, because now you're confronted with that question: who am I without all of these things? And if you don't like the answer to that question, and then you combine that with the fear of change, you have all the elements possible to like hang on to any dysfunctional relationship possible, because the evil that you know seems more comfortable than the good that you don't know or don't even know about.
oh, Yeah. Did you guys get that? I
It's like
got
the
so
evil,
excited.
like it's like the evil that you know is still more comfortable than the good or unknown that you don't know.
If you don't know. This is just amazing. But just okay. The evil that you know is so much more comfortable because it's something that you know versus something that you don't know that perhaps could be better for you, and so we
Yeah.
resist change. But I was going to say,
Yep.
going back to that relationship example, maybe Zeke, perhaps what makes it even more stressful for people, and what makes it even more challenging for people is, sure, we have the relationship, but guess what? And everyone who's watching, but there are also people around us who already know that we are in a relationship, that there hasn't been one person without the other. And so that perhaps puts for sure extra pressure on people. Like people have known us that we've always been together. We've always been
Yeah.
this couple. We've always been this team. I've always had my PhD. I've always had my money. You know where we're going, right? I've always driven this type
Yeah.
of car. And I've always gone to my 9 to 5. And then this pandemic happens, and then we're shut down.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And this is where I would say that for very specific cultures in the world, this whole idea of social identity or relying on what other people think is a lot more is a lot more prominent. So, like growing up in the Philippines in my first uh, couple like of years, it was always that sense of people saying, "Hey, don't do that. What would other people think? What would the neighbors think?
Please listen to this one. This is so important, everyone who's watching. Okay.
Like what would our neighbors think? What would your lola think? What would your grandparents think?" Everybody's saying something about what does everybody else think. What about what you think? Like, did anybody ever ask you that? Like, what do you
I,
think?
especially Zeke, if Tagalogin natin yan. By the way, everyone, Zeke is Filipino, just in case. All right.
Yeah, guys, it's just that my Filipino is extremely rusty, and I can understand if you guys talk to me in Filipino. I just probably would have a lot of trouble trying to reply to it in straight Filipino. But kamusta sa inyong lahat? It's really hard.
He works, if I have my numbers accurately, like he works with people from over 95 nations, if I have that correctly, but with Mind Valley. So I mean, it's all mixed group of people. That's why this is an amazing chat. Going back.
Yeah, and one of those things that are very, very specific to Filipino culture is that concept of hiya. You know, that concept of hiya. That's something that has been like, that word has thrown so many people to only care about what other people think and not think for themselves. It's like mahiya ka naman.
Oh my gosh.
And you know that, like, as you said earlier, it's like what your friends all tell you. They've always known us as this couple. That's just another way of your ego saying, without these people acknowledging us as this couple, then who are we? And who am I to these people? And again, because you don't know what the answer is going to be, you'd rather not face it. Because still, that's change all over again.
Okay, I think this is now this is so important. I mean, we could go like so many directions with this, but I'll go with this one first. So what if hiya is shame, Mommy Alma? So she's asking, what is hiya? It's shame, you know, like Nick, hiya is shame. Okay, Nick from Wisconsin is here, and Maki from Brisbane is here. Hi guys. So I'll ask you this question, Zeke. For people, and you know, they're going to be watching the replay of this, like what happens in your perception, or your perspective or idea about people in life when all of this is stripped away, like cultural conditioning, my stuff, the ego, and I'm there, like what's left? And you know, and I'm asking you this because, Zeke, a lot of people, like you said, there's so much fear in you know, in letting go of certain identities and associations with, could be the external, or could be internally with their thinking. But what's left there when, as a human being, that's taken away? And short of going to death, Zika, short of going to death, like what's left there for people?
I think there are many ways to unpack that. So I think to be able to give that context, I'd like to segue a little bit to understand how people evolve in life first.
Okay, sure.
Because that goes like from when you were born, life, all the way to death, right? But let's talk about that from the perspective of human psychological development. How does a human being develop psychologically? So at the very beginning of life, let's not talk about why you were born, because that's another can of worms. We'll go there towards the end, because that's like iffy. But when you go, and Wesley, you said hiya equals shame. I think I can relate to that, how the Chinese would do things to save face. That's exactly what it is. It just comes in many different shapes and forms, but it's very, very strong, particularly in Asian cultures and Latin American cultures, are very common. So back to it, like what happens when you're born? You're born as a child, and let's look at this child. And this child is pretty much useless. You know, you have no functional use in the world except to make people around you smile because you're cute. That's all you do. And then you cannot survive. You're useless. You're probably like, you can't even feed yourself, and you even poop yourself. You don't know how to take care of anything. But what that kid does then is it starts mirroring and looking around to say, okay, I'm a child and I don't know how to survive in this world. But I already know that I like playing with, say, early on as a kid, I knew that I like playing with Lego.
Okay.
Like I played with Lego. I like reading books that had rich stories. I like listening to my grandmother telling me about mythologies in the mountains, about like different stories that enriched my brain. I was fascinated with people and characters. I already knew that. I just didn't know how to survive in the world. So I spent the next 14, 15, 20 plus years of my life trying to learn from adults how to survive in the world.
Understand.
And that's when you start taking on the rules of the world. So you learn what it means to like survive with money, how to not socially be awkward with people, hopefully, how to get along with others. And then you carry on all these rules of society. And then at some point, that's called the time of what it's called as like apprenticeship in life. At some point you get burned by all of these things that we're talking about. Say you get into a relationship and then you realize, oh my gosh, my childhood crap is coming out here,
Yeah.
and now I need to deal with that. But this time I can now deal with that without worrying about dying because I'm already an adult. So it's almost like since you were a child and then you became an adult, and then the next 40 to 50 years of your life is all about trying to return to being to that childlike version of you before you took on the all the trappings that the world has to offer. You're basically going backwards. You're trying to remove all the social conditioning that you've put on yourself so that you can actually be you. That is the cycle. That is the
This is
cycle of
great.
human development. Now
So
the
it's
question,
not.
yeah,
Go ahead. No, I was going to say. So it's not actually, and a lot of people are who are watching this. They might be, and we're not saying you're wrong, but again, we're just exploring different ways of thinking and going through
yeah,
life. But as an example, like some people might say, "Oh, I've got a." I heard this from David Hawkins in one of his books, and he talks about people learn this technique and that strategy, and there's just so much adding on, and all we're doing is just learning more techniques. But I think what I'm hearing from you is sort of like the stripping away of all of these other things and going back to the rawness. Perhaps
yeah,
we say essence of who you really
yeah,
are, and then
yeah,
maybe you discover, Zeke, that it's actually very simple, not just simple, but it's actually very beautiful. But it's just been tainted by just so many things that we think are. We were talking about the
yeah,
Zeke, where we think this is important, and we're not saying that life is not important. Of course, you have to pay your bills and all of that stuff. But I think to the point where it drives you to depression and wanting to hurt yourself and hurt other people. Yeah, so definitely that. I also don't want to miss all of our viewers. There's a lot from a lot of people watching us. Robert says here, it's quite a long quote. Your opinion of yourself is far more important than the opinion of others. Okay, we'll go through this. You really can't please everyone. Very important. Just select whose opinion matters. This also perhaps Zeke. I heard Brene Brown speak about this, where she talks about
yep,
she just has this index card, and in that index card, she just has the names of people whose opinions matter to her. Not
mm-hmm,
everyone, not those keyboard warriors on Facebook or on social media, but just people on that index card. Okay, with our team. So by the way, just to give you context of who Robert is, he is the CEO of the largest auto accessories provider in the whole country. They have 50 stores. He's an amazing entrepreneur. But he also loves these discussions. That's why I'm so grateful you're here, Robert. With our team, so he handles his team. I always tell everyone to value the opinion of their family or one. This to some extent their bosses, because the job and company help put food on the table. Everyone else, co-workers, friends, acquaintances, opinion should not matter because they do not add value to you and your family. Any thoughts on this, Zeke? But thank you, Robert. I appreciate you commenting. Definitely, we're discussing a lot of stuff here tonight.
I think a true master of the world can listen to many opinions, but all in the end make up their own mind on which ones to listen to. Because it's
Zeke, how do we know? Because so many people will say, "Bam, I feel this. I know this is the right thing, but I'm not sure. Can you tell me if it's the right thing?" A lot of people go through that. Like, I'm not sure. Can you confirm? I'll pray, and I'm not mocking people, but I say I have to wait for my sign. But some people already know, but they still doubt.
of
Like what?
course, I mean, there's a reason for that, because being able to re-unpack all the conditioning that you've put on yourself to get to the essence of what does it mean to be you is not an instantaneous process. There's a lot of peeling to be done. It's like you've taken on so many things in the world that as you're unpacking things, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty in the process. So it makes a lot of sense for people to doubt themselves when
I
wondering
see.
if it's the right thing for me. And there's
That's
something,
wonderful.
and I want to be very very clear that this taking on social rules of the world is not bad. It's not necessarily bad because these are the things that help you survive in your environment. It's called apprenticeship for a reason. You're apprenticing in life so that you can survive. And then once you're done with your apprentice, it's like I'm a warrior. I apprentice with my master. My master's not like me. I learn how to do certain things, but when my apprenticeship is done, I have to do my own thing. I have to take what I've learned from him or her, and then express it in my own way. And that's part of the cycle. That really is part of the cycle.
Okay,
And you
are
have
you
to,
talking? Yeah, are you talking about that person now? The apprentice now goes, and this is now that mythological story, of course, of the adventure where they go
yeah,
on the adventure, and
yeah,
and the choices perhaps that they make, Zeke, and everyone watching here, where they might make, and we'll just use it just so people can understand. They might make a mistake, and obviously people say, "Oh, I made a mistake in this relationship. I was hurt here. I was hurt there." Is that part of the discovering of what's truly, you know, their essence? Like, because people are afraid, perhaps, Zeke, of making the mistake. Like, ayaw namin magkamali. We don't want to make a mistake because of the pain, because of the hurt, and we want to make sure that the decisions we make. But how do we learn? Of course, through other people's experience. But if you're going through it, how about that? When people say, like, yeah, I want to learn, but there might be pain associated with this choice that I make.
well, as I said, any form of change is painful.
Got it.
Like when was the last, like one of the things that I will tell you right now, some of the most traumatic things that you have gone through in the past 20, like 10 to 20 years, during the time that they were happening, they sucked really badly. But if those things did not happen, you would not be the amazing person that you are today.
I just did a live on that. Exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
Exactly what you just said. Where when we're in the middle of the change, or we call it the traumatic experience, perhaps, or
Yeah.
and again, out of all due respect to people who have gone through some form of abuse and hardship in your past, but we do say that those opportunities, where those situations where it was perhaps a breakup in a relationship, it was a health scare or a health crisis, it was where you lost your job or your money. But if you look back and you see, if you had made a choice to to keep going forward and grow yourself and learn from that experience, then you would have evolved as a human being. Where perhaps, but other people, Zeke, might have gone through that, but perhaps they got stuck. I don't know if you've seen that, where they become bitter and resentful and angry
Of
and
course.
start
Yeah.
cursing. Okay, all right.
Of course. I mean, you also have to understand that there's different models of being able to see where a person is at any given point in time. If you look at survival mechanisms, like say at the very bottom of the spectrum, you want food, water, and you want a place to sleep. If you don't have this, the base layer, don't even talk about self-esteem. Don't bother. Like you're going to die, literally.
Wow.
So if you're in that mode, don't talk about depression. No, talk about physical survival. Once your physical needs, I think I'm chopping out a little bit, but okay, there we go. But once your physical needs have been met, then you start dealing with feelings of, oh, okay, I want to belong. I want emotional safety. I want to feel like I'm safe here. I feel like I want to be accepted here. And you have to understand that most of the world is having these higher levels of problems now because the base fundamental requirements of living are becoming more available. So now we're dealing with higher problems, which is how do you feel more accepted? How do you feel happier? So you could say that this is a progression of problems that the world is facing.
Okay. Yeah.
And the other side of the spectrum, which you might want to look at, is from which place are you looking at your challenges? Are you looking at it from a place of the world is happening to me, or is the world happening for me?
Okay.
There's many different
That's.
ways to look at that.
I mean, so how do you see your world? I know the answer already, of course, but is it? Do you see? And I'm asking you this because there's a lot of people who are there's okay. I don't want to ignore people who are here. They're appreciating you. A lot of people here are appreciating a lot of stuff that you're saying here. So I'll just go through a lot of the comments, but later on. But so I would assume that you're viewing life, Zeke, that the world is happening not to you but for you. Is that
No,
safe to say? Okay,
no.
no. Okay. So
Uh,
what is your take on that?
I think life is life.
Oh, wow. This is wait, wait. Sorry. This is great. Okay, but Sam, tignan mo to tignan mo sinabi ni Zeke. I asked him, okay, this is sort of like a quote that Einstein said, where he asked, like, one of the most important questions you can ask yourself is this a friendly universe? Sort of like related. But I like this one. We're asking Zeke, is the world happening to you or is it for you? And he says, nope. What does that mean? And Zeke says, it just is. The world is, maybe I'll stop there. The world is.
Yeah,
And
the
then
world is.
and then, so how does that, nakuha niyo ba yun? Those who are watching, there are a lot, they're commenting a lot. I'll post all of this. So guys, but why not, so Zeke, why not the world is, are you talking about narcissism now, and like everything has, it's revolving around me, which I've heard, Sam Harris debate with Jordan Peterson and a lot of this other stuff, where they say how narcissistic is the Christian belief that the world, it revolves around me and it's happening to me, and I'm praying for this blessing for me, for me. Like what like how do we go through life if life just is?
So if we're gonna go down this rabbit hole, I have to make a disclaimer that whatever I'm gonna tell here is personally my own perspective on things from studying various. I studied Taoism, Buddhism, uh, like Hinduism. I came from a Catholic background, Islam, and there was a focal point where I just looked at it and said, "There's a lot more here in common than there is different. If anything, they're almost all the same." And if you look at why I think life is just the way that is, let's pretend at the moment that you are a human body. So like the human body, you have white blood cells. Does the white blood cell have a brain? No, it doesn't. Not that we
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
But it knows exactly what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has a place in your entire body.
Okay.
And it knows that the white blood cell's purpose is to express itself as a white blood cell.
Correct.
So what if we were all just part of one big energy? People flaunt around that idea that everything is energy. So
Mm-hmm.
doesn't that mean that the same stardust that makes you is the same stardust that just makes me? And it just means we're just one part of one big colossal body. And I am simply a white blood cell in potentially a bigger body of some gigantic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then what is it for me to do? Nothing. I'm to express myself as a white blood cell, which is like express kill as being kill. Like just be kill. Just do whatever makes sense for as long as that's what your essence is. So I don't necessarily believe in chasing things. I don't think
Wow.
at the very base level of things, a lot of people would say the world is happening to me. Like I'm a victim,
A
and
victim.
okay, that's scary. And I don't want anybody to be there. That's a terrible place to be in because that's a rabbit hole. But the next thing is now you are bending the universe to your will. Now you're telling that I have these goals. The universe will give this to me. Like I'm going to manifest that stuff. But you know
Yes.
what? The challenge with that is that you're using your thinking brain to say, I think that this is what I want.
Ooh. Wow.
So you might be manifesting the wrong thing because
Wait,
what you
sorry.
think, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, okay, you're saying, so people who are watching us, if you guys are learning, type in learning. I know you're all commenting, but just type, I'm learning so much here. Wait, okay. So you're saying you're using your thinking brain. Are you alluding to the fact that maybe they are trying to manifest something that was socially conditioned into them?
Yeah. It's like why are you trying to manifest $1 million?
Okay.
What's that gonna do? Like who
Okay.
said that
So
was like the best goal? Like, whoa, okay.
are you guys hearing this? So this is something to reflect on for, and I appreciate everyone who's here. joining us. I'll go through all your comments, and perhaps if we have a little time later, kung kaya pa ng bosses ni Zeke, we'll do just a bit of a Q&A. But obviously, listen to this, what he's saying. Okay, and again, the disclaimer here is that we're sharing, we're having a discussion, and you're free to choose whatever path you think is right for you, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: to be able to say that you guys are manifesting, perhaps a lot of us say it's the car, it's to be in the, and this has been addressed a lot of times. When I don't know which order this. Okay, when I get to graduate from school, I'll be happy. Okay, when I get my first job, then I'll be happy. Now I've got my job. Okay, I can't be happy yet. Why? I don't have my car yet. Now I got my car, then I'll be happy. But when I have my house is when I'll be happy. When I have the house, it's not enough. When I have my family, that's when I'll be happy. Oh, but that's not enough. When I have children, that's when I'll be happy. But that's not enough. When I get this promotion and I get to travel and get to do this and have the $1 million or whatever it is, perhaps that we've perhaps identified as our icons of success or icons of wealth. So sinasabi ni Zeke dito, perhaps to, maybe do a process of introspection, and maybe Zeke could talk a little bit about this and see where did all, and by the way, Zeke, I must say, there are people here, I won't mention who, but there are people here who have had that very struggle, Zeke. They're saying, Bam, I'm in this situation because of my family. Then I said, is that what you really wanted to do? No, not really. Why are you there? Well, because it's the expectation of my family. And not even about the family, Zeke. There are a lot of people here, and I'm including myself in this, where we think we should this, it should be that. But then again, but where did all this adding on come from? And I'll go to you, Zeke. I remember this, and I know we spoke about Anthony DeMello in his book, Awareness, and he says in India, before the transistor radio came, everyone was happy, and then transistor radio was introduced. Some were given and some were not, and some got introduced to this concept of lack and unhappiness. Yep. Others have this transistor radio, but before that, they were all happy. So maybe perhaps if you're watching this, maybe go and reflect on what is it that you think is lacking, and really perhaps go think about that word lack. Because as you're focusing on that word, perhaps that will be your experience for a long time, because you're not complete, right? So, I mean, I'm just sort of like reflecting a lot on that, and throwing it sa kanila din, Zeke. Sige, anything else about this, Zeke?
Well, but again, I'm saying that there's also nothing wrong about wanting to manifest things that might not be fully in alignment to you, because maybe that's simply where you are right now. That will change later on, but it's just not now. But you will. You'll figure it out, and you'll have your own experience of life. And what I meant by life is what it is simply that every single person is going through their own sense of what does it mean to live your life. And I cannot control that, but I can at least make my experience worthwhile without harming anybody, and doing what I can that's good for as many people as possible, not because of any other reason than that's what feels good. Like,
yeah, well,
have you ever asked a child, like, why did you give the banana to your mom? I don't know. It's like, because I wanted to. It really is just that simple. We just find ways to make life super complicated.
But there's something that you said, Zeke, that I don't know if people caught that, but you were still talking about goodness. You're still talking about goodness. Is that the essence of? And I don't mean to go super spiritual here, but would you say that is a pretty good indicator of where people might be aligning to who they really are, what their essence is, as long as it's aligned to something that is good. Although that can be very, how can I say, I would say subjective, or subject to interpretation, but good, feeling good. Maybe when you're seeing kindness, this is what I share in my broadcast: kindness, gratitude, love, compassion. Is that something that is an indicator that we are perhaps on a in alignment, Zeke?
It's possible, for as long as you're thinking about it from the perspective of who can you feel love for? Because you could have love, compassion, and kindness, but that only extends to your family.
Mm-hmm.
Or that only extends to your community, or that only extends to your race, or to your nationality.
But nothing wrong with that, Zeke, right?
I mean, if that's where you are, then that's where you are. I mean,
I love
I'm pretty sad about people who only care about making their own immediate family happy and harm people who are not part of that immediate circle
part of their
and
circle, part of their tribe, part of their
part of their
race,
tribe or part of whatever.
nation.
Because yeah, and you cannot, like, some people take time for them to realize that the world is bigger. But what happens when your world has become bigger? Because, when you're a child, you only care about yourself. The next thing you know, you care about your brother, your sister, and then also your mom and your dad. And the next thing you know, you care about your friends. The circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then now your definition of what does it mean to be me is no longer just you. Me also includes whichever circles I am part of. So what happens when you've expanded that circle all the way to every living thing? Then the definition of me is not just me. It is everything. It is. So if you're going to extend love and kindness and compassion to that because that's what feels good, then it would make absolute 100% sense for you to say, I'm going to give my money to this person who badly needs it more because I see you as me. There's no
Wow.
division. But not
There's no set.
everybody is, yeah, but not everybody is there, and maybe not everybody will get there, and that's absolutely fine.
I get that. I totally understand that. But I'll just go through some more. I felt I'll go before I go to the gym. Quick one. I felt my individuality when I was assigned in Bacolod before. I became physically far from my family. Benefited from the distance. Thank you, Tati, for your comment. Well, definitely, perhaps that's where you were sort of like able to process and see who you were as an individual. Let's see Nick's comment here. Check out Jim Quick, who I think Ezekiel probably knows personally since he was a guest on Mind Valley, and I saw Vision's interview with him on some good note making and memory techniques, as well as Ronnie White, Anthony Metivier, and Dominic O'Brien have amazing free content. Thanks, Nick, for this. Like I said, Nick, Jim Quick was actually a guest in Mind Valley. The world is happening to me. Okay, is the world happening? Okay, we'll go through this one. Is the world happening to me, or is the world happening for me? It's starting to happen for me.
And that's
Okay.
great. That's fantastic. That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing because that means this person has an intuitive feeling now of what does it mean to be me, and you can sense which opportunities actually call to you, and you cannot resist the urge to listen to that anymore. It's like you being in a toy store. And like when I was a kid, I was a big fan of Power Rangers. And you bring me to a toy store and I see like a Power Rangers there. It's like it really calls to you like, oh my gosh, I really want this. Like I cannot not be drawn to this. Imagine if you had that sense of feeling of being called to opportunities, to people, to decisions, because you're in tune with that inner self. That's kind of what it means when life is happening for you. You're already being called to things. You don't need to push. You're just being called.
Yeah. Oh my God! Wait lang, Zika. You're breaking up. You're breaking up, Zeke. Just a minute. Uh okay. I hope. Can you hear me, Zeke?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So that whole there was like a minute part there where you broke up. I got the part, and I have to go through the comments later. Zeke, this is what they're. Someone is asking Zeke, is this the Matrix? Are we talking about the Matrix? Now, before you go there, before you open your mouth, Zeke, and speak about this. I just want everyone to know, nakiusap lang ako kay Zeke. I mean, he graciously accepted my invitation, just like you, Robert. This is not planned, but I do believe, I might say it's not planned, but obviously I believe everything has a purpose and a reason. But so you were mentioning it's like being in the toy store, and you
Yeah.
like the Power Rangers, right?
Yeah,
And
and
what did naputol ka?
if you see a toy, I like when I saw like a Power Rangers toy or whatever, I knew that I was like, I want that. Like I really get called to that, and I'm a little kid in a toy store being called to it. like you cannot stop me from thinking about it because it's just so ingrained in me, and I really desire it from the bottom of my being, because for me that was fun. What would life be like if that's how you saw everything that mattered to you? That you can't see all the distractions, you don't see jobs that don't make sense to you, you're only filtering it now in terms of, wow, the things that truly matter to me are literally like visible to me. Because our eyes work, our eyes don't work in like this, it works in filters. So
Hmm.
if you don't know what you want, then you see everything and you get distracted by everything. But if you have a very clear idea of what makes sense to you, then you only see that and you don't get distracted by other things. And because you can see it, you're so called to it. It's like that Power Rangers toy in the toy store when I was a kid. So I am hoping that more people eventually get there at some point. That would be amazing.
Okay, I have to ask this. Is there like a practice? And I don't mean to get technical, Zeke, but I mean because I want to relate my own story. Like for me, 2006, I took my first personal awareness program. The basic awareness program, and I did my second level and a third level. And my auntie at the time was asking me, "Bam, I want you to be a facilitator, be a speaker, help me with my teens. They're going through life challenges, and I see you as capable of." I said, "Nope, I want to play music. Like that's all I wanted to do." So I played music. I was in a band. I loved it, and it wasn't until 6 years after, or maybe 5 years after, when I was part of a mastermind, and I was watching Tony Robbins do this. It was not about him as a personality, but he was helping this teenager who was suicidal. And I saw this teenage girl. She was crying. She was clutching that microphone, and there was just so much emotion in that moment that I started weeping. I started crying, and I'm like, that moment that I saw that, I said, "That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do." And I was already going into my mid 30s. I had no experience with training or speaking or any
Mm-hmm.
of this personal growth stuff, except for perhaps some Wayne Dyer audio and a little bit of, listening to The Secret. But when I sort of like got that tug in, I said, why am I crying? But not just why was I crying, because a lot of people would cry with certain videos where they see kindness or people being helped. But I was crying, but at the same time, it was a pull. It was like, that's what I want to be doing, right? But I don't know exactly what my process was. Perhaps in my mastermind, we were visualizing. Maybe we were breathing. Maybe I was able to silence my monkey mind. Is there a way that people who are watching this, that they get to that process, or do you think is it just like, oh, it'll just happen, it'll just unfold, or is it just they'll be adding on more conditioning?
I wish I could say that it's a process that everybody would go through. A lot of things that people don't talk about in personal growth, at least in my personal opinion. So I'm not speaking in behalf of Mind Valley. I'm speaking for myself.
Personally,
Is
sure.
that personal growth tells you what's broken, but it doesn't tell, and it shatters your world, but it doesn't tell you much about how to put it back together.
Hmm. Hmm.
And to be able to really dig deep to find out your sense of what does it mean to be you, it is a lot of looking at everything that has happened to you in life and finding how that has translated to how you are today. And if you, because if you don't do that, like you cannot move forward if you don't know where forward is, because you don't know where you are right now. Do you get what I mean by that? It's
Hmm.
like, how
Hmm.
do you know where your present self, how do you know where destination to go if you don't know where your present is? And you will only know where your present is if you know where you came from. And that is the thing that people are most scared of to do, which is
Okay.
like to look at everything that you've gone through in life, the good, the bad, and ask yourself repeatedly, how did this experience translate to how I behave today?
Wow.
And I'm at
Did you
best and
guys hear
I'm at
that?
my worst.
Okay, how did that experience in my past affect how I behave today, right now, in present moment?
Yeah.
I was reacting to it, Zeke, kasi like ako, when I go through those times where I feel insecure or fearful or I get angry, I do self process, right? And the process that I get is like, what am I feeling? Okay, I feel angry, I feel, and so what is it about? If I really go deeper, and it might be connected to what you're saying, and people who are watching, maybe this will help you. And for me, it always goes back to my relationship with my mom. I
Yep.
felt at some point, this is just my experience. I love my mom, nothing wrong with her, but it was my experience. It's our interpretation of the meaning that we gave growing up. For me, the meaning that I gave was, perhaps I was abandoned, or she wasn't there for me, and that showed up for me in the now, and that sort of like was an indicator of where, okay, if I can understand this about myself instead of blaming people I'm in relationship with, or blaming God or whoever else, it sort of like gives me understanding of where I am in present moment. Are you sort of like speaking about that aspect
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because how like so I run when I work with people on personality development. Work mostly with, and someone who wrote there about like, oh, is this the matrix? Yeah, absolutely, like hands down. Like, I'll just tell you off the bat that people, if you talk about matrix as the world that we've taken on because of social conditioning, including how the world works and what we think success is or what good and bad is, yes, that is a form of the matrix. And the people that I work with a lot in terms of finding out, like, they usually come in the form of people who have anxiety, or people who are finding like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't feel like I'm in the right place, or I don't know why I'm repeating certain patterns in relationships. That's how you know that people are ready to start digging into, why am I doing this?
When they ask a question or the
Yeah, when they
question.
start exactly, because like, I've had the same relationship pattern for 3 times. What the hell is happening? That's the kind of stuff where, like, okay, you're ready to like dig into this because you're sick and tired of repeating the same pattern. And the only way you'll be able to get rid of that pattern, if you really want to get rid of it, is find out what is the source of that pattern. Why do you keep attracting the same type of person? They may look different from the outside, but your domestic problems seem to be the same abusive relationship, the same hang up, the same whatever. That all comes out way back where maybe your role models or a trauma from watching your parents fight about something. They're all there. All the answers are there. Just people are afraid to look at it.
The form changes, but the struggle is the same. In
It's
essence,
the
the struggle
same.
is the same.
Yeah.
Form keeps changing. Some people might say, Zeke, palitan ko tong, I'll change this relationship. I'll change my job. My boss is the problem. And then they
Yeah, but you
find
didn't
out.
change.
Did you hear that? Did you guys hear that? You didn't change you.
Yeah, you didn't change the most important variable, you.
The most important variable. I mean, okay. So I'm just doing a time check. Are you okay with time, Zeke, or you want to start wrapping up already?
Oh no, I'm
I'll
good. Go
just.
ahead.
Oh, you're good. Okay, sige. So
Yeah.
narinig niyo yan, guys. Zeke is good. This is crazy.
I mean, I don't
This
have
is what.
anything. I have no other appointments today, and I'm enjoying this. So go for it. Go.
Oh, wonderful. Did you hear that? He's enjoying this. How do I look like I'm enjoying this? This is for me, conversations like this is gold. I mean, so I'm just very appreciative of this time. But I'll go, I don't want to miss what you guys are saying. So B has also been involved. She did some work with, who was that? Was it Louise Hay that you worked with? I know you met in Daughter, but maybe share something about your experience with your own, your own journey. So she said here, everything changes, but it can only change you for the better. You give yourself the power to surrender and view these occurrences as gifts that inevitably shape you into a better version of yourself. All right. We'll just, hindi lahat ng i-post siya, because Zeke and I won't stop. We'll go like 5 hours with all of this content. But we'll just sort of like read through. We'll read through. Ito, may naloka na, Zeke, may naloka. Bakit daw? What happened here? Where was that? Where was that comment? Okay, let's just see.
Oh, you mean the term, like when I said, like, the world is, like, it just is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people wrote it down. Naloko ako ng slight sa, yeah, the world is, yeah. So it's sort of like lagging a little bit, but I'll read your comments out. So me, oh, look at this one, Zeke. MJ wrote down here, me, as in small me versus big me versus me. So perhaps this is you, just having that battle in your mind, Zeke. over and over, where you think, again, going back to what he was saying, you think you're fighting your husband or your wife or the world, but perhaps you're fighting an image that is stuck with you about an experience you had with parents growing up or
Yeah.
someone else in that environment, and you don't know it. It's unconscious, but you're fighting them even as an adult.
Yeah.
So Darlene, I'm sure you remember Darlene and Dope. So Darlene says,
Oh yeah,
"Woohoo,
I remember.
Ezekiel!" Yeah,
Hey.
she's here. Thanks, Dar, for being here. Of course, all I know their hubbies are here. Cassie is here with her husband as well. I love this so much. Preach on, no judgment here, brother. From Nick, thank you, Nick. Roy says, in many cases, we lack the perspective to wholly judge things as good or bad in the present moment. So better to see that life is just life. Now, this is deep, Zeke. I mean, for me, I'll put that label deep. But really, this is sort of like, and again, we also spoke about. I think if you remember, I mentioned Byron Katie and her work. Right, you're familiar with Byron Katie for sure.
Yeah.
Where she says life is, but the moment that the thinking happens, that's when the moment suffering happens. And wait, I think I forgot, but may discussion tayo about Byron Katie's work. Understanding at the moment you say, like you think one thing, that's when you suffer, and the moment that you don't think about that, you actually don't suffer. But there's just so much thinking that we're bringing into our life situation that hurts us and hurts other people. You can jump in anytime. I mean, that's just a framework that she shares in the work that she does. Everything has its rule, and we are all interconnected. We are all part and parcel of life. Yes, learning. So Wesley says he's learning tons. I'm so happy you're here, Wes. I am so happy you're
Mm.
here. They're commenting, Zeke, learning so much. Oh, so there's your comment, Robert. Are we talking about the Matrix? So he did say yes. So there is still the red pill. Okay, now about the red pill. Maybe a lot of people will say, I don't want to take the red pill because sabi mo nga, Zeke, any change is stressful. If I take that red pill and I wake up to the reality of, what? Zeke, I can't blame my husband anymore. I can't blame, my parents anymore. I don't want to freaking take that pill. Are you crazy? I want to keep living life blaming. And I stay with the blue pill. I don't know if I mix them up, where, life just continues on for me and I am unconscious of, the fabricated world, because a lot of people might not, want to take that, and we call it waking up. I don't know if there's a different term that you're using, so you can reply to that if you want. I'll just go through. There's just so much. A lot of people are learning,
I mean, that's a
getting on.
choice, right?
Did you guys hear that? What's the choice, Zeke? That's a
I
choice.
mean, if you say you prefer to live in a world where the world is happening to you and you make that active choice, I mean, okay.
Yeah, but I guess I want to point this out though. I mean, you see how Zeke is sort of like, I'll just use the word responding or being. It's okay, but I think a lot of us, and that's why I love these conversations, Zeke, because it's A, okay, it's B, okay, it's nothing, okay, but
I
that's
mean, if
quite.
you, so here's the thing, like if you chose it knowing full well that you are choosing misery, then is it really misery?
Oh, because you chose it.
Because you chose it.
But okay, may unpack din to. We'll never.
What if, like because the thing is, like, you cannot escape from any form of suffering in this world. Like if you want to be continuously in a state of happiness, there's a word for that. It's called cocaine. That's like a just be on drugs all the time. That's just biological signals in your brain to be constantly on a high and happy.
Yeah,
Life is not all about happiness. That's a crack addict.
of course.
No, if you're gonna live through life, you accept all of it. And if you're making choices that will hurt, maybe it's miserable right now, but it won't be miserable later. But you have to make that choice, and you have to make an informed choice of whether or not you're making these in the first place. Like I've made my own couple of times when I chose to stay in a relationship or a job that was a bit longer than it should have lasted. But you know what? I was not at the right time to say, nope, I'm done with this. And that was simply what was going on in me. And if somebody tried to force me to do something against what my choices were, I wouldn't have felt good about it either because it
Mm,
wasn't my choice.
that's right.
Now, it's very different if somebody is robbing you of a choice, though. That's something completely different.
Okay.
That should be dealt with.
I hope you guys are. I know you are learning and enjoying this. Keep those comments coming. So maybe we can touch a little bit on this, Zeke. The word depression, right? A lot of people, we are. Of course, I do understand the medical aspects of also imbalances in terms of body chemistry. I get
Yeah.
that. I get that part. But what about the other aspects? Just as like you were looking at all these things, the different aspects. What about the aspect of like you said, being able to experience life in its fullest form, the happiness, the joy, but also the pain and the hurt and the grief, and this because we don't, you know, losing a child, Zeke, losing someone that you love, or having that diagnosis of a sickness, or but really things that perhaps are really causing a lot of people pain. Um, how do we help people, especially ngayon, because of this pandemic? A lot of people are locked down. A lot of people, as it's been reported, a rise in domestic abuse. People are suffering and crying and hurting. But maybe let's not go to the physical abuse, right? Because that's a long discussion. But maybe we'll talk about what if it's just emotional. I'm living by myself, and there are these moments where, and I have experiences as well where I just feel this dark energy, and I don't like it. Sometimes I don't know, is it physically, is it physiology, is it spiritually, is it something in my soul, or is it a combination? But it sucks. And a lot of people, that darkness, perhaps if we could say that was in, could be measured in levels. A lot of people have this really deep darkness, and short of hurting themselves, right? How does one navigate through that darkness and that pain, which I know a lot of people watching this are also going through at times?
Well, one of the first things you can do is ask for help. I mean, there's like the world of personal growth is littered with tools on gratefulness practice or whatever else might be there that you can use. I mean, I'm from Mind Valley. You have the whole shebang there. Like everybody's got a gratefulness practice. Everybody's got a meditation practice.
Did you
There's
hear
a,
that? They have it.
there's
Go
a
ahead.
meditation for that. There's a practice for that. But I prefer the answer that is simplest, which is don't be alone. Like don't. I
Please write that
mean,
down if you guys are taking notes. Go ahead.
yeah, don't be alone. And human beings are social beings. We are not like the reason why we survived, Homo sapiens survived, and not Homo erectus survived is because if you pin one Homo sapien with one Homo erectus will win. But if you put 10 Homo sapiens against 10 Homo erectus, the 10 Homo sapiens will win. Why? Because they're social beings. Like they can talk, they can communicate, they can make story. We thrive in packs of people together, and just touching another person or being in the presence of somebody who doesn't want to hurt you already makes you feel a sense of like a sense of, oh wow, this feels good. I'm not alone in this world. Start there. Just
No, I
start
know.
there.
I'm shaking my head because that's so deep. But I'm also feeling perhaps yeah, a lot of conversations I've had with people and people who are here as well. When I know guys, those who are watching this live, and I appreciate you. Sometimes it can be very challenging to go to reach out, as you were mentioning when we started,
Yeah.
Zeke. Well, because of Hia, you know, Zeke, I'm a Christian. I'm a father. I'm this. I'm that. I shouldn't be already experiencing any of this depression, and it stops people from simply doing that one action that you just mentioned could possibly help one person, is to just ask for support. But perhaps also, Zeke, like, who do we ask support from? That's another important thing. To other people might not have people who could hold space for them. di ba sabi nga nila Tony Robbins just talked about this, the male brain. We want what's wrong, we want to fix it, right? Uh, you fall flat again, okay? Or it might be someone who just say, inum mo na lang yan, or forget about that. But what is perhaps if you do get support, or if you are the one supporting someone, what's a way that you would, um, be there for them so that it comes across as sabi mo, having one person to be there who doesn't want to hurt you, right? Do you say anything? And I'm speaking as a beginner here. Do you say anything? Do you do anything, or do you just be there? They're crying. They're going through all this pain and hurt.
I mean, number one, don't try to save anybody.
Okay, please take
Because
notes, guys.
don't try to save anybody. Don't try to take on the other people's pain. But I would just tell you that what are the things that people really like? Go start simple. Eat with somebody. Like, have dinner with somebody. Sit there. Don't talk. Just like know that, hey, there's another person here. There's nothing that needs to be said. There's nothing needs to be done, but I'm not alone here. Sometimes some things don't need words. Because sometimes even words are scary. But presence is more important sometimes.
I was just, as you were speaking, Zeke, I thought about my mom. There are times because of the work that I do. There's an aspect of it. Of course, we call it like doing healing work, doing processes with people, and unloading a lot of that hurt and pain, however you call it. There are times I also go through my own dark times and down times. But when I get to talk to my mom, sometimes umiiyak ako, like I'm crying, like really crying my heart out, and she just listens. And but of course, you guys have also heard just the fact, just hearing your mother's voice releases oxytocin as a child. To be able to connect. For me, just to hear my mom on the other end of the line and to be able to express. She doesn't say anything, but sometimes she'll cry with me. But I guess people who are watching this, to have that person with you who can support you during your downtime is so important, because you are a social being, and we all have a universal need for connection, right? So there's so many comments. Zeke, are you okay? I'll just go read through them quickly lang. There's so many comments.
If you don't
So
have a person, you can also have a cat. So
yeah, well, they say diba, that there's lower incidences of depression among pet owners. There's studies that they've done. You get affection without the demand for, especially if it's a dog, without the demand for to reciprocate. They're just happy to see you any day. They'll lick your face. So Tati says this live makes me feel alive. I'm so happy you're here, Tati, with your husband. Hello, Gerard. Um, Here, Doc Maria. She's one of the people who is a friend of mine, virtual online. We've never met personally. She is actually a medical doctor, and they do a lot of research for cancer. She's based in Sarasota, Florida, and she has a lot of insights. She does TM as well and other stuff like that. So she says, "Yeah, Doc, I'm so happy you're here, Doc. There's a difference between what we want versus what we need. Most of the time, what we think we want is not what our true self needs." Okay. Yeah, maybe um, a lot of people were just searching and searching because we think that external stuff will satisfy, and it never does. Ain't that an irony? Because growth starts outside the comfort zone. Okay, looking at it from a space of allowing. The fear here is it might have a directionless life. Emerged, the analytical me is shaking. Okay, what does this mean? Looking at it from a space of allowing. The fear is that it. Oh, okay. So, are you talking about Jam? Not having like. Please clarify na lang, like not having goals and aspiring, but Zeke made it clear it's okay to aspire for things, but as long as perhaps you have a deeper awareness of. I would say and Vishen talked about this. That's Vishen Lakiani. He talked about means goal and ends goal, but also perhaps understanding when you're in the process of pursuing a goal or your life vision, it's the beingness of how you're pursuing, being in the present moment, and whether you get the goal or not, the experience of perhaps the joy or I don't know, lightness in your spirit, whatever, is also very important. Just jump in anytime, Zeke. I'm just going through. We're like 30 minutes behind all their comments. So Nick said, outstanding stuff. Of course, this is. Thank you so much, Nick. Isn't it great, Nick? You mentioned an author speaker. They're friends with Zeke. Ang galing lang ng guest speaker. Oh, I have to post this. Power coaching duo happening now. Ang galing lang ng well, but paano hindi siya magiging magaling? And I'm not flattering Zeke. Paano hindi siya magiging magaling? I mean, he's this CEO, Chief People Officer of Mind Valley, who has just dished out tremendous programs and partnered with amazing people from all over the world. Kaya nga sabi ko I mean, this is also, I guess, Jam, a manifestation of asking, asking people, but also for me, perhaps also being able to express what's truly in your heart. For me, it's these types of connections, and Zeke knows this when we had a conversation. But now having this audience, Zeke, commenting and engaging us, they're saying, "So love this, Mommy Alma. Thank you so much. Very interesting, Coach Bang. Congrats. Thank you, Joe M. I'm glad you're here. Amazingly awesome people watching and commenting too. Wonderful live, wonderful topic. See, this is what happens when you don't plan it. um, well, I'll keep going. Tammy's here. Hey, Tams, thanks for being here. Presence is indeed more important. There's just, okay, well, Zeke's just going to jump in and anytime because there's just so many things, you guys. Obviously,
Yeah.
we've engaged them, Zeke. But yeah, sad to say, we're not going to be on for another hour, I don't think. but wow,
Yeah.
okay. Sige, you can jump in anytime. Zeke. I'll just
Yeah.
go through. They're saying a lot of stuff about about how this is so helpful for them, about the content that we're talking about, Zeke.
Yeah.
So wonderful
Like
live
one
on
of the things
topics.
that
Okay.
one of the things that I was thinking about lately, and I understand and I know that there's a lot of people who are really suffering during this time period, and I
Yeah.
know everybody talks about it, and but there's also one other way to think about it. When you're trapped at home, you don't really have much of a choice except to deal with what's in front of you, which is basically like your family or your partner or your kids or your own thoughts.
Sure.
And these are the primary basis for what actually matters to most people. And yet you spend 70 to 80% of your time every day somewhere else because you have a job. So isn't that interesting that now that you're spending so much time at home, now you're feeling the pain? What does that say? I think that says a lot about, like, maybe it's about time to spend time with the people that actually matter, because by dealing with the people who actually know you the best, as I said, with your family or people you care about, or more importantly with your own thoughts, maybe that's the time for you to, as evolve to your next version, or more likely come closer again to like the child in you before, maybe,
And not to resist it, not to fight it,
and not to
because
fight it.
there's where you suffer.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you to our speaker. So clear naman you. No, sorry. Scott Mitcherson from Newcastle, Australia. Good day, mate. I'm glad you're here. Scott, I don't think I've met him personally, but he shares a lot of great content on his page as well. This is so interesting what Zeke just said. We can put it this way, Zeke. Our whole lives, 60-70%, also perhaps more than that. And I know you also had some content with Mind Valley with this, where since we're busy being human, right? Working and all this stuff. Perhaps there's our distraction because we're programmed 9 to 5. We're programmed for
Yep.
the commute, the train, or the drive. We're programmed to get that sandwich or that dinner after. But now, like, the whole world has stopped. I mean, literally, shops closed, businesses are closing, people are unemployment is rising, and we're left to our own thoughts. And sometimes, I know I've had these talks when I do my online programs, and People are saying, "Bam, I've tried all these games with my kids. We've discussed so many topics, and I'm running out of things." And perhaps also, maybe you can also talk a little bit about this. Like, what happens when you just become still, and perhaps let go, or perhaps be aware of your need to always constantly be doing something in terms of activities. There's always got to be something scheduled. The controller type. There's always got to be something on the menu today. What are your thoughts on that? I've heard it said before, like, to give yourself an opportunity to be bored. Where for me that's a chat. Like, I want to, like, do something. I want to do something. I've got to, like that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think parents have it much harder.
Than the kids.
No, I'm saying that if we're referring to adults, I think we're dealing with very different types of different intensities and different natures. So I don't necessarily think that they should be compared, because if you're mostly by yourself, then you're contending with your own thoughts and your
Yeah,
own
solo.
monkey mind. Yeah, because your mind is filling in the silence. It's like, am I going to get fired tomorrow? Do I still have a job? What am I doing here? Blah, blah, blah.
How do I
When
provide?
you,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, when you're with your partner, or say with a partner, or your brother or your sister only, or but let's say partner, like romantic partner, then the conversations are more like, you know what? There's the I wanted to talk to you about this for a very long time, but I have never had the chance to talk about it. Maybe we should talk about it now. Boom. That's like, whoa, that's like an opportunity to have the conversations that maybe should have been happening for a very long time. And
And
that's why
Zeke,
that's
yeah,
yeah,
sorry, and Zeke, that may have been also been the very things that people have been avoiding for
could
a
be,
very long
yeah,
time.
could be, yeah, very
All right.
possible.
Okay.
And with
And
parents,
perhaps that's
it's also very different, especially if the children are fairly young, because now you have kids who are constantly in front of you, and they're asking you about everything and anything about the world. And now your entire, like, it's like this kid is literally pulling from you all the potential knowledge that they could buy, because they're in the phase of trying to be apprenticeship right now. They're
all
trying to
right. So
learn about the world, and now you're like, oh yeah, they're pulling everything from you, and some of these things that they're asking from you, you haven't figured out yourself.
that's so good. I mean, Robert is a parent himself. Joanne is here, who's a parent herself. I mean, are you guys getting this? So imagine this pull of energy from you, the demand of energy from you every single day. So
Yeah,
obviously, we say that's why you will have your moments of breakdown where you get, Joanne. We've had a lot of Doc Joanne. She's also a medical doctor. She's here, where she's also related her own story, of course, of the demand. Aside from just taking care of your children and teaching them if you're homeschooling, plus there's house chores, plus there's the cooking, plus there's all those other stuff that you have to do. So definitely there's a lot of expectations and pressure there as well. Robert says it was your moment, bam. I do believe that everyone has or will have theirs, and it is very different for everyone. Thank you so much, Robert, for that comment. Roy says you can't move forward if you don't know where you came from, and yep, that's what Zeke said. What does it mean to be you, right? How did this experience affect how I behave? They're taking so many notes here. Nick says dropping big truth bombs. That's why we love conversations like this, Nick, right? Um, and he says freedom. Uh, they said I was gonna translate that they super kilig daw ako. Of course, I'm speaking with Zeke of Mind Valley. This is crazy stuff. Let me pass a drink to Zeke and Bam. I am loving this. Well, like I said, we didn't plan this. All his appointments just dropped tonight just for this. I think this is what I was talking about. Zeke, I said, like, whoever will join this conversation tonight probably meant to join this conversation. You didn't change the most important variable, you. I'm just quoting all the stuff that you said that they wrote down, Zeke. So enjoying these two. Gold indeed. Don't worry, Zeke and I will send you guys the bill later on. Uh, they're getting too serious. They're getting too serious. Yay, no time limit. Oh, that's not my time. It's Zeke's time. but Zeke, before I continue reading, I want to say, man, I appreciate you, brother, for uh, I just say such a generous heart. And Zeke has been wanting to support. Cassie knows this. The Philippines. What other way can we support? Obviously, with all you guys here, and we haven't even. Hang on. So let me just reconnect. Let me just reconnect. Mm. Okay, sorry. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still
Yeah,
here.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. I lost my connection. So anyway, yeah, I mean, Zeke, I appreciate you for your generosity, and I guess this is also a manifestation of help that people need. But also, Zeke, I mean, this is a snapshot. I won't even say tip of the iceberg, but I can imagine a lot of people who are not involved in this conversation tonight. Because we didn't announce this. Sorry, Nick. I didn't announce this, Nick. I messaged Zeke an hour before we were going to do a live, and he just said, "Yeah, sure, let's go do it." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, right." But I was also like, I didn't know what to talk about, but I just trust. But I'm also, taking it from the conversation we had when we were first conversation we had. We were just going through a lot of stuff. And I said, gosh, Zeke, if people could hear this conversation, if people could hear what we're talking about. But he also mentioned something about, sometimes he would see me and so like the live nga ako, Zeke, like I'm by myself. I don't care. I've got a message to share. There's one viewer here. I'm like, go, like this is what I want to share. So this is for me. This is just so gold. So Janet from Sydney, Australia says, life is simple. Everything happens for you, not to you. Oh, Byron Katie. You're familiar with Byron Katie's work? Great. If you're choosing misery, is it really misery? Maybe a fixation on being the victim. Wesley says that. Life is not all about happiness. True. Okay. Robert has a comment for you. Zeke, spot on, Ezekiel. It's your choice to be happy or sad. How you look at your world is truly your choice, and your future and what's happening around you are directly impacted by your choices and outlook in life. Uh, put
Hmm.
that up. Put that up. Life is the C between B and D. Birth and death. The C is choice. Ooh, that's interesting. Nice framework. I think it's a choice. Roy says, I think it's a choice of experiencing the pain now or later in the sense of thinking short term. By the way, Royce is 25. I met him, he was 22 years old, Zeke, and he already had this type of thinking, existential questions and processes. I think it's a choice of experiencing the pain now or later in the sense of thinking short term versus long term, instant gratification versus discipline. Don't be alone.
Hmm.
So,
I think there's
Royce,
something there though.
go ahead, please go ahead.
So one of the things that I don't necessarily talk a lot about is time, because I think time is something that people have a very strange relationship with. You see a lot of people who it seems like they think that life is so short, so they're running after everything. And you see people who look at life very differently and say that, oh, I mean, yeah, I was suffering maybe like 15, 20 years ago, but that was a long time ago. And if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be who I was today. And I think that's something that is an element that's not talked about with regards to how you see the world and how you feel about things. There's three
Okay.
methods of looking at it. It's like, are you living in time, meaning you're running after time all the time because you feel that there's not enough time in the world. And you see this with the whole hustle culture of people wanting to be productivity freaks because they just want do because I could be dead tomorrow. And then there's another group of people who get too much of that and do the complete opposite, which is people who live out of time. People who are more like, oh, there's no urgency. I don't want to be in a job. I don't want to be doing anything that has anything involved in the world, but they're actually fairly useless in society. It's very possible for that to happen. Or they complain about like, how come things are not happening for me? It's like they're sitting around not doing anything and they're wondering, why is this manifestation not happening? No, because there's a third factor, which is living in timing. Everything in the world happens on the right time. And if you like, it's like saying you're trying to catch a wave. That's why I like talking to people who surf, who do surfing, because they know what that means. It's like you could be sitting on a board all day long and not catch a single wave. And that's not something you can deal with. That's not something you can do. You can't just say, give me a big wave. No. But when the right wave comes, you better know when to ride it. But to be able to do that, you have to keep your eyes open. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to life and happiness or fulfillment, whatever, you have to see like, where are you in time? Are you running after time? Are you living out of time, or are you waiting for, or are you living in timing? And when things happen at the right time for you, you acknowledge that, oh wow, this is my time, and I feel it and I take it. But that means not looking at what other people are doing. Just care about your timing.
Okay. Are you guys? I know you guys are taking notes, but this is just amazing. Are you living in time? Are you living out of time, or living in timing, where you're
Yep.
understanding that everything happens in just the right time? You don't have to force it. You don't have to try to manipulate it. Maybe I'm not just talking about time. Maybe this is where we start to try to manipulate people, right? Where, okay, I have a goal and I'm not getting there yet. I'm getting older, and
Yeah.
well, or perhaps, but bam, why are you guys talking about it? Well, perhaps it's creating unnecessary stress in your life that's causing you, I don't know, to go into your depression or your anger, because your reality is not matching up to that idea that you have in your mind that you should, and that word should have already. But I love that metaphor of catching the wave and just being there, but also understanding. But you're not just there like for no purpose. I mean, you're there on your surfboard. But you have a purpose for being there. But not only did you have a purpose for being there, but you also perhaps also trained or practiced to ride a wave, right? I mean,
Yeah.
although nandun na tayo sa metaphor that you're on the board, but that just sort of like assumes that you went through that training of learning how to ride the wave, right? So I think when everyone watching, you are waiting for your timing, but are you prepared when the wave comes? Can you ride it, or do
Correct.
you
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
wipe
Do you
out?
even know how to ride one? Like, do you wipe out, or are you aware? Like, have you practiced so that when the time comes, you do? And how do you know if it's? There's a question here. Like, how do you know if it's actually your time? It's like you try, you try, because it's like when you practice any form of sport and like you surf, the first couple of times that you try to ride a nice wave, you'll fall. But with enough practice, you'll do it. Life is practice. It has to be practiced. And sometimes that takes time, but it's your time. It's not somebody else's time. It's not your dad telling you it's time. It's when it's your time. It's when you are ready to do that. And
So
you can't
yeah, go
force that.
ahead. Yeah, I was gonna ask. So do you have a belief that there is no such thing as late or too early in terms of like the life process? Is it always like just on time?
I mean, who's late? Who says what's late?
Hmm.
I mean, you're late if you believe you're late.
Are you guys taking notes? This is great. All right. Narinig nyo ba yon? So you're the one saying you're late. Again, you're thinking about your situation. I'm talking about money. I'm talking about relationships, Zeke. I'm talking about, whatever other people might be. And again, we're not saying that it's wrong, but just we're having a discussion and we're talking about stuff. So, but I think this is important. So I know you're all taking notes and processing. I can't seem to post this one, but it says, B, whereabouts in the States are you? Like, I know you're in the States somewhere. I'm so happy you're here. I know, B, you surf, right? This is just so timely that you're here. Depression is real. You need trauma and therapy specialist. If one is ready to touch that dark side, it's time to heal inner child. Okay. Thank you for that, B. Sam says, "Don't be alone. This makes me appreciate the wisdom of a mastermind." You guys are, I mean, these comments are pretty amazing. I think your presence is more important than trying to solve a problem. Yeah, I know we were going back a little bit for stuff. I'm catching up on the comments, guys. Hold space, sacred ground, space of love. Do not try to save anybody. Actually, people just want to be seen, yeah, and heard. When people cry in front of me, I just say, cry. I'm just here. I'm just here. Active presence and listening, and your attention is precious to the other person. I love that. Oh, Mads is here. I feel comfortable with silence with people I am with. Yeah, but I think it's also understanding that there are some people who might have a certain need that comes out. I guess to be able to discern that need and how perhaps it might be conditioning you to something. I need to exit to take care of something really awesome. Wesley was just saying thank you for this really really great live. But he I think he works nights. Presence is indeed more important. Love that. Thanks, Tammy, for being here. I hope your daughter, Patricia, and Patrick are watching this as well. Don't try to save anybody. You are interfering with life's natural process. I have read that somewhere. Mommy Alma, I'm so happy you're here as well. So yeah, Wesley just commented that as also, don't try to save anybody. Yes. So they're repeating what Zeke said. Presence is important, and in some cases, that's what saves you, or at least helps people through their dark. Yeah. Asali Cebu, thanks so much, Cebu, for being here. Presence is very important. Damn good conversation. So grateful. Okay, I can't catch up. There's just, but anyway, in a nutshell, are you living in time or are you living out of time? Beautifully said. Exactly. I just want to make, okay, Cassie says, yes, surfing taught me that. Ride the wave when it's there, paddle through, and take the timing. Wow. So Cass, I'll put up your comment. Robert says, tonight is not an accident. Enjoying the chat. Good job, Bam and Ezekiel. I'm so grateful you're here, Robert. We have a question, Zeke. So what are your thoughts on there is pleasure in pain or there is joy in sorrow? Okay, maybe I'll ask that Zeke if he has any thoughts.
Well, I mean, you're alive, right? So yeah. I mean,
This is crazy. You're alive, right? So yeah, I mean, you get to experience it.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, you're alive. There's going to be pain. There's going to be pleasure. There's joy. There's sorrow. I mean, otherwise, what's life if you don't experience those things? I mean,
Yeah.
I could go completely spiritual here and just say the whole point of why you were born was because your soul somewhere was like, I'm already perfect and I'm bored. So let me be born as a limited human being that has to experience pain and happiness and suffering because it's cool and it makes me feel more like I know myself better. Like you could look at that. There are people in the world who believe that, like very deep spiritual people who see that the only way to understand yourself better is if by experiencing what you are not. You don't know what hot is if you don't know what cold is. And you will not know what cold is if you don't know what hot is. So if you're already perfect as a spiritual being, then why don't you experience being not a perfect spiritual being so that you can appreciate your spiritual beingness more? There's a lot of people who believe that. I'm one of them. That's one way to look at
Um,
it.
so sort of like the saying of, you would not know what joy was if you did not know, if you also did not understand what grief was, or if we're always just all joyful and always all happy, like yeah, we're just like drugged up because you were saying cocaine, we're all just drugged
Yeah.
up and then we're all happy. But is that what life, is that what gives life meaning, but is that where we also start seeing perhaps that, again, compassion and kindness, I guess it's world design. Okay, I'll keep going, and maybe I'll go to our last few and sign off in a bit. Okay, so grateful to contribute to this torrent of comments. So much participation from everyone. It's amazing. Not planned. That's what's crazy about this. Not planned. Grabe talaga, napaka-bless. Thank you so much, Asali Cebu. Thank you po. Ang ganda ng usapan. Thank you for being here, MJ. Talk about COVID, you guys. Cassie's asking us to talk about COVID. I think we've been talking about COVID since we started. This is what people need nowadays. Awesome to hear. Two brilliant minds. Ezekiel, powerful points, Nick says. Okay, there's a question here from Cassie, and maybe we'll start wrapping up with this one. Evolve your next version, coach. Mixed feelings here. Glad I accidentally opened this, which is not accidental at all. Sure. Um, okay, we'll go through this and then perhaps get some last words from Zeke. How do you process isolation? A lot of people are now undergoing miscommunication and chaotic family struggles now that they have so much more time with each other. How or what do you think could be the first step to harmony? Winks. I think Zeke sort of touched up a little bit on that a while ago. This is like a comment from 10:03 p.m. Zeke. So I'm just going back to them. I really enjoyed it. You guys should do a seminar together. I would love that. You stay connected on here too. Yeah, no, okay. What are your thoughts? Oh, yeah, okay, done. Tonight is not enough. Done. Okay, I think we are about good. How do you know if it's actually your time? Oh,
Oh yeah, I
okay.
answered that a while ago.
Yeah, yeah, right. I also have, yeah. If it's happening, I guess it's your time. Are you living in time? Okay, okay, right. Timing. Okay, ready to ride the wave. Beautiful questions. Okay. Oh, you're in Australia, B. So a lot of people from Australia enjoying the surf. Okay, I think well, maybe we should about wrap up. I mean, this is a lot. This is a lot. We from 8:30. So yeah, well, so we about almost went for 2 hours, Zeke,
Mhm.
and obviously, we could probably go on all night, but I'll let Zeke rest. Uh, but first of all, maybe I'll just say thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. Zeke, I'm grateful also that my internet signal actually held out this whole 2 hours. I'm grateful for that. Guys, I appreciate you for all your comments. Australia, Wisconsin, Brisbane, of course, New South Wales,
Wow.
from all over the world, wherever you guys are. Of course, Singapore. I'm missing some countries, Japan. I'm so grateful you guys are watching us. Hey, hey, B, I'm glad you're here. You're all over the world. Florida, of course, Doc Maria. I'm glad you were able to join. Hopefully, no, I'm saying hopefully. I know we'll have an opportunity to chat with Zeke again. I gotta catch him when he's free, and perhaps do a part two of this, just like as I'm like doing with Robert. Yeah, but perhaps any other parting words or anything else to share with people who are here based on all their comments and stuff. Mackie, thank you. Zeke.
I think what I would end is, people should appreciate silence. Like, sit with silence. I think there are times these days where you're surrounded by, maybe you're just with your family or by yourself. Try to make friends with silence and see where that takes you. I think the world is noisy, and it was getting noisier and noisier and noisier, and now we actually have an opportune time to like be, literally just be, and sit in the silence and appreciate it for what it is, because you might not have it again. You could also see that this entire chaotic period is might not happen again, and for some of us who are quite younger, I mean, we don't know if like this is basically like our version of a global world changing event in our lifetime. And a couple of years from now, when we're on our deathbeds, we're all going to be talking about, do you remember that time when COVID-19 happened and blah, blah, blah happened? We're all going to look at this in a certain way. You look at it that way. So I would say make the most of the time that this is happening. Use it to better yourself if that's what's calling to you. Spend time with loved ones and repair, mend relationships that are happening around you, or end them if they need to end, and get ready for the next wave of what life is going to bring you. I think we're all in that state right now of anticipation of what's next. But maybe that's not the question. Maybe the question is, let's just sit here and then what? Maybe that's better. That might be better. And also,
No,
like,
I
hey,
mean,
thanks for having me over, and I really appreciate like people who came on and contributed here. I miss being home. I'm only home once a year. See my parents once a year, but I hope you're all doing well, and thanks for having me on short notice.
yeah, well, we miss you here in the Philippines, bro. I mean, I'm talking about the whole country. Your country misses you, or well, the country misses you. Uh, but we'll make sure that when Zeke gets back here, and you guys are still, we're all together here. We'll hang out with Zeke. He's always been a great guy, open to hang out. Hi Gabriel. We have a Tati's young son. I think I can forget how old, 11 years old or 12. I'm glad even kids are watching this. So yeah, Nick says make friends with silence and appreciate it for what it is. Enjoy it while it lasts. I think that's a on that note, that's a great way to end. I think this catch up. I can express how grateful I am, Zeke, truly for your time. Again, sharing all your thoughts and insights to everyone who watched here tonight. I mean, there's a purpose why it's us who are here. Again, this was not announced. This was not planned. I asked him an hour before we went live. and truly there's a purpose for these types of interactions. I learned so much, Zeke, and I just got distracted. There's a comment here about cocaine that you mentioned. You guys are all the
Please don't do
cocaine.
don't do it.
Okay,
Don't do it. Just
so
don't.
Zeke, here's the comment, Zeke. Here's the comment, Zeke. You guys are all the cocaine anyone ever needs. So we're coke, Zeke. Keep up the excellent work. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, brother. So I guess yeah, uh, with that, we'll say good night. Please, for those who are watching, send me. I know you're already messaging me and saying thank you for this live broadcast. But connect with Zeke. They were asking if you had Instagram as well. I don't know
Yeah,
if
it's
Nick
my
had.
full name, just
Sorry.
like Ezekiel Vicente is. You'll find me.
Yeah, so Instagram Ezekiel Vicente. If you want to find him, just the Google Mind Valley. You see all the work that they're doing. You can't miss them. You can't miss Mind Valley. So yeah, hi to Vishen. Say hi to Vishen for us. Yeah. Thank you, Zeke, for this night. We're hoping for all the best there in Malaysia, in KL, but not just there. Of course, the whole world. And for now, I guess it's an opportunity for us to just be and not do and not have to focus on the
Yep.
have, but just to be in the present moment and also to
Yep.
appreciate silence. I know tonight I'm going to be meditating on a lot of things that I'm just very grateful for. But most importantly, it's that stillness in my own spirit to know that whatever is unfolding, whatever is happening is meant to be happening. And it is in timing. So thank you so much, Zeke, and thank you so much, everyone who joined us tonight. We'll see you again soon. Have a good night. Thanks, Zeke. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Please share the video. Please share the video. Let's see if we can end this broadcast. Yes. Did I end it? I think I did. Yeah, end.